I think it's a combination of the two is what I'd have to say on that. In the Future X book we wrote, we predicted there would be 10 global survivors, 10 global survivors and 100 local survivors. That's sort of we like numbers of 10 in Bell Labs. And in the 10 global, it could be a combination of web-scale players who remain global and some telco players who federate to create a pseudo-global, if you want, alliance. We even talk about an airline-like alliance of telco players that could create a global infrastructure. But then we also emphasize that local is incredibly important so that you can deliver high-performance, low-latency services with very high bandwidth. Talk about millisecond latency being required for the future with AR and VR and some industrial control processes. Millisecond latency requires I'm within 100 kilometers of my customer, and so that suggests hyperlocal is also part of the solution. So in the book we talk about global local as the new paradigm with a balance between the two. So in fact you could be either a local or a global, or in fact both, and that's how we see it playing out. And it will be a combination of web scale, traditional telcos, and new entrants, of course, will enter this space as well. I think it is a metaphor for the future of our industry because its defining characteristics are going to be those characteristics of millisecond latency and gigabits per second per connection to obviously wirelessly connected devices, which is how we live. There are wires going nearly all the way, but in the end that last little bit is always wireless. So 5G is a metaphor for the future of our industry. And of course 5G also, if it's also about providing experiences, then it has all the pieces that go with that, which means IP and optical infrastructure, cloud infrastructure, hosting the control plane to give me massive scale for IoT. So it's not just about humans, it's about machines. And if I add all that in, then 5G is an end-to-end architecture. That's how I think about it. IP and optical infrastructure connecting edge clouds that run new applications and host the network itself. And then the wireless piece is the piece at the end of the long wire that essentially provides the massive capacity. And that's sort of the 5G architecture. And it does enable new applications by definition, because there's no point in building if it doesn't. In particular, 5G will play a role in analytics and securing of those IoT devices. So it's going to be sort of more deeply involved in that part than LTE has been. And so I think that starts moving the infrastructure piece up the value chain. So it's not just to allow over-the-top applications, but in fact by doing the analytics and securing of those applications as well, you start becoming involved in that value chain. So 5G is a bit disruptive in terms of the value proposition, not just an end-to-end architecture at the infrastructure layer. Yes, they could. In fact, what we believe is that one of the drivers of this edge cloud architecture that we see coming is the virtualizing of the network itself. In particular, the mobile network has some interesting timing requirements around a few milliseconds. If I virtualize it, I have to actually respect that timing. And if I need to build millisecond timing, I'm going to build a cloud that is 100 kilometers away from the end user. It happens that millisecond timing is also what I need for virtual reality and augmented reality and some mission critical applications. So think about it, the network itself will be built with performance criteria that are very similar to the virtual reality and augmented reality applications and some mission critical control applications. So it would almost be folly if when we build that cloud for the network, we don't also make it available for hosting next generation applications that will enable a new digital future. So I think almost by definition the momentum goes in that direction, and I think the industry has to make sure that we do build a network with cloud infrastructure that actually can be used for a multitude of applications, particularly around hosting these new augmented reality, virtual reality type applications, as well as the network itself. Then that really gives me to the new value paradigm that really this conference is all about. Can we find new value anchored on the network but above the network? And I think that's the way we'll get there. I think this is a very open and honest debate that happens at this event. We're talking about, can telcos win versus the OTTs in the future, and what is the right balance of value? Customer experience, can telcos provide customer experience that matches customer expectations? IoT, 5G, many very important topics, and it's an open debate that they have at this conference. So really challenging Sometimes it's called the red hat, blue hat, but it's really a debate format of one side against the other and trying to resolve where we think the consensus is and what's required to get there. There aren't many conferences I go to that have that format and that outcome. I've enjoyed this year and I look forward to being here for many years to come.